What's up, guys? I'm EJ. I'm joined by Shamari and Kendall, and thank you all for checking out our Hawkeye weekly recap. Today, we're talking about episode 3, Echoes, where we learn plenty about our new Marvel character, Maya Lopez, aka Echo, who, while she's not going by that alias as of yet, this episode being titled Echoes certainly made a lot of sense. And we end up getting one of the more action-packed episodes of the season. And I thought perhaps maybe the strongest episode of the season so far. I'm very curious to hear what my guys say. Should be a good conversation. So I'll toss it to Kendall first. Kendall, just overall initial reactions. What did you make of episode 3 of Hawkeye?
I thought it was a solid episode. Kind of I really don't know how to describe it. This whole series has felt like it's a build up. Still an episode where like not a ton happened, but
You don't think a ton happened here?
No, I don't. I wouldn't say a ton happened in the episode. Uh, not in the vein of
I would agree with
certain episodes of Falcon Winter Soldier, certain episodes of Falcon Winter Soldier or something like that, where they're going all over the place and this was a little bit more contained, but we got good scenes. We got to learn more about the characters. We learned more about the dynamics between certain characters and certain things. So, and a lot of different teases. So, overall, I thought it was a good episode. But that's been the series so far, which is interesting because we're now halfway through. We'll wait to see if the second half of the series will be a little more faster paced.
That's interesting, Sham. It's, where you hear Kendall use words like contain, words like not as much happened, and you say you agree. Why do you share those sentiments?
Well, I would agree that just in the overall scheme of, I think, or I don't know, maybe I should say I hope, I guess, the plot, it doesn't seem like much happened, and like just tangibly in terms of what actually happened, like plot wise, in terms of when they were writing the show, what happened to Clint and
Kate. Kate Bishop.
Clint and Kate. What actually happened to them in this episode? And there's not much. It was a lot of action, and there were reveals certainly, and some definitely a lot of character development for Echo, which I very much enjoyed. But I would probably agree that not much actually happened. So I'm hoping that we do get more in terms of I guess just like story beats in the next 3 episodes. But I very much enjoyed this episode though. This is definitely my favorite episode.
Yeah.
Of all 3 episodes, I think the action I thought was great. That scene when they were escaping from the tracksuit mafia was fantastic.
Yeah.
I think you can make the case that's the best action sequence of the Disney Plus series.
I was just about to say. I mean, Kendall mentioned Hawkeye, Falcon and Winter Soldier earlier, and I would argue that this episode, the car chase scene is again, I agree, the best action we've seen, including anything we've seen out of Falcon and Winter Soldier. That's not to say that there wasn't great action in Falcon and Winter Soldier, because there was, but something like a car chase scene is just so it's kind of like it's very much gimmicky. It's very much a kind of a cliche. We see them in movies all the time. Obviously, when you're dealing with someone with the abilities of Kate Bishop and you're using arrows, that gives you a little more creativity, but nonetheless, still it's a car chase. So how do you make that different and interesting? And I would argue this is one of the coolest shot car chases scenes that I've ever seen in anything, whether it be TVs or movies. So I think that they deserve a lot of credit for that. I know in some ways maybe some of that we saw a little bit in the last Disney Plus Day kind of featurette that they did on the series. Though luckily we saw that they didn't show us everything. There was a lot more to be seen, and we got to see a lot of that play out, particularly with all those trick arrows that Kate was going through. It ended up being a really dope scene. But I do want to start kind of on Echo, because the episode's called Echoes, and the story to me, in at least the first 10-15 minutes of it, is certainly very much driven by this Maya Lopez character, who we're introduced to as a young child. We're introduced to the fact that she's deaf, also that she has, she's missing a lower part of her leg as well, so she has, multiple disabilities she's dealing with. and she's struggling through staying, being at a regular school. She's not at a special school for kids with disabilities. She's in this environment that is difficult, though we see that she's still a very smart girl. She's still able to pick up things. And there's this very touching scene with her father where they're going over just how valuable this experience will be, even though she prefers to be in kind of a school with people like her, that being able to live in kind of both worlds was going to be beneficial to her. And from there we get to the karate scene where she's taking karate classes, and they kind of start to kind of build up why she is as special as she is when it comes to her fighting ability. We see at a very young age she's taking karate lessons and beating up much bigger kids. But I think I'd be remiss. I don't think it makes sense to kind of even continue with it without talking about this uncle. And I know the uncle is only mentioned a couple of times this episode, and we don't ever see the uncle's face. But when she's at this karate lesson, as her dad drops her off, he says, your uncle's here, and your uncle will take you home. And we're introduced to some big man in a suit, and we hear them kind of laugh while they pinch young Maya's cheeks. And later on in the episode, the uncle is mentioned again by Kazi, who's trying to talk about the fact that the tracksuits are making a lot of noise with this Ronan chase, and perhaps they need to take a much lower profile. Is there any doubt in anybody's mind that this uncle that we're talking about is Wilson Fisk?
I mean, I'm at I don't know, 90%. Okay. I would be surprised if it wasn't.
I'm probably at 95%. I'm probably not. I don't see. I mean, just a big trench coated, very large man with a big hand,
right.
Very large hand. And I don't think it was just from a child's perspective. I think that was a big hand.
Right.
So I think that is. I think that was.
And throughout the episode, even Jeremy Renner talks about how the tracksuit mafia, they have a boss above.
Yeah.
Echo. And so if there's a boss above Echo, you would assume it's the uncle character. So I'm assuming that Unc is Will Smith.
Right.
But yeah, no, I mean, it's. So I'm wondering if we didn't have a feeling going into this through reporting, sourcing, whatnot, that Kingpin was supposed to be in this series. Do you think that we would have still thought that was Kingpin?
Well, I think so. Because
Hawkeye hasn't. I mean, Marvel hasn't obviously told us that Kingpin was there.
I mean, if we hadn't heard about anything about it,
right? Like if it hadn't quote unquote leaked that Kingpin, D'Onofrio, tweeting all about, I may or may not be in Hawkeye. Like, would we have liking tweets and whatnot?
I think that would have been a top theory.
Yeah, it had to.
A street boss,
right,
with a giant, big white fist.
Right.
I mean, I don't know.
And I think also when you talk about Maya Lopez's Echo character being so closely linked to Wilson Fisk, in the comic books, she grows up under Kingpin. Kingpin treats her as if he's her own daughter. I think it's an interesting twist if this is indeed kind of how they're playing it. Like, he's like an uncle to her, because in the comics, as I was reading, preparing for the show, I think Wilson Fisk kills her father. Which kind of makes for an interesting dynamic. Whereas here, we see Ronan killed her father. So
Ronan actually did kill her father. Now,
yeah,
we don't know if. I mean, we assume that was Clint Barton. You obviously with these shows.
That's
you don't see
true.
Under masks. Like, was that a hitman and it happened to be someone else that happened to be wearing a Ronin costume? That seems like a lot of degrees of separation, but
I don't think that's necessary.
Yeah, that seems like an unnecessary twist.
Yeah, I think just having it be Clint adds a lot to the story.
Right.
I think it does too, especially,
and it makes sense with where his character was.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it makes sense with every kind of confrontation they have, and when they're in that, worn down KB stores, which by the way, I think I'm so happy that they even thought about that they took like a KB toy store, which, I haven't seen one of those in, 15 years perhaps, and that this was their warehouse. But every conversation where you see this kind of rage within Maya when it comes to that Ronin figure, and Clint having to kind of walk this fine line of being like, Kate's not Ronin, and I know who Ronin is, but he's dead, so don't worry about it. How do you know all this? And he's got to also make it clear that it's not him, so he doesn't get killed. Like, and Black Widow got rid of her. Like I think that like it adds to the like if it's somehow we find out like Clint didn't actually kill her dad, it was some other guy that was Ronan at the time, or some other person. I don't know. I don't know if that would hit as strong. I do think that if we want to play the game, is there a way that Kingpin actually did kill her father and she doesn't know it? Like, I don't know. I just think that would go kind of a long way.
Because remember,
because this guy was working for the tracksuit, so clearly, like, he's in the criminal element. So why wouldn't have Clint taken him out? You know what I'm saying?
Now, in the comics, Daredevil is framed for killing her father, and she thinks it's Daredevil, and she goes after him and whatnot.
Right.
So in this, she's going after Ronan. So again, has Ronan been framed?
I guess the only difference between Daredevil and Ronan is that Daredevil, it doesn't kill.
Was a superhero, quote unquote.
Yeah, Ronan's a killer, and
Ronan has no. Ronan makes no accidents or no apologies for killing people.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's like I think a major difference is Ronan wouldn't he would have no problem killing her father in theory if he thinks he's a bad enough guy.
Now remember, he doesn't. The one thing that we know now is that, like, he still doesn't realize why she's upset, as far as we know. Like,
she just thinks that Ronan has made a lot of enemies because he's taken out a lot of people, and he's taken out the criminal in the world. So he thinks it's very simple.
Do we get to a point where he realizes I didn't do
Probably. And I think that's why
I know all the people I killed. It was not this guy. Like, that could be interesting.
Yeah, and that's possible, and perhaps does that end up becoming the kind of the crux of a plot for an Echo show? We talked about okay, you're doing Echo, and we're hearing that it's Daredevil Light. Like, what does that look like? What's the plot for that? Will there be any interest in that? If you create the tea leaves that actually it wasn't Ronan and perhaps it was Fisk who somehow had some kind of role in it, I think that could be the beginnings of a very good series, like, for sure. That definitely sounds like a 6-episode Marvel series that could be super dope. But I do think it's a lot of hoops to kind of jump through for this, where I do kind of to me also the reason why I kind of wanted to just be kind of simple and have Clint killed her dad is because there's just something about those years that Clint spent being Ronan need to have consequences. Like, it can't just be, this is just a misunderstanding that we figure out in the end that, actually I didn't do anything bad to this guy. Like, we never see his consequences for anything else he's done as Ronan. This is actually the first time we've ever seen him deal with any consequences of being Ronan.
Yeah.
And I think if you somehow twist it and say, he actually didn't do it, it kind of takes away the consequences that are supposed to be real for what he did in terms of being Ronan during those years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point. I think you sort of answered what I believe is maybe the most likely reason why it may be a red herring is because, like you said, they have to make a story for the show, for the Echo show, and if we know, they've already through the rumor mill and whatnot, we already know that Kingpin's going to be in that show. At least we think he's going to be in that show. And so if he is in that show, and if we think Daredevil may be in that show as well, if the story is going to be her and we have to make her out into a face character, into a hero, her going after Fisk for this setup, it feels like, I don't even know the example, but I feel like that's a story we've seen a million times, where the person thinks it's this person killed somebody, then find out it was they were framed, and so they go from being the villain to then on their side going after the main villain.
And this would also be the second time we've seen that, because in Daredevil he framed Daredevil with what's his name, Bullseye.
Yeah. What was that, season 3?
That was season 3.
Yeah, season 3. Yeah.
So we're gonna see him frame someone in that show, and we're gonna see him frame someone in this show, and in the Echo show potentially.
He's got a way of doing that.
Right. Yeah. It's again, I'm kind of torn. Like, there's a sense of me that part of me says, look, again, that would be a great setup for Echo. Though Shamari is right about the kind of a little bit of repetitiveness there, but I don't think Marvel worries so much about the stuff that was done in the Netflix shows. I just don't think, I agree wrong. I don't know what they're thinking, but my feeling is that they feel like this is whatever they're doing is going to be their like take on it, and they're not going to let some other creator that they weren't involved with kind of not let them do what they want to do if it makes sense. I know that now in the past, to be fair, Feige said he doesn't want to do things that have already been done, but he could find that making the story center around Echo could be different enough to where it doesn't feel as repetitive. Whether or not it feels that way is going to be in execution.
Yeah, I think Feige's ideology was probably more on a more grand, scale, as opposed to, this is a story detail that is similar. What was he even framed for in Daredevil? I don't even remember. Like what?
Did he go? He killed a bunch of people in the Bulletin. Remember, he went to the Bulletin, the New York Bulletin.
Killed a bunch of people. He went to a church and killed a bunch of people.
Yeah, he was wild. He was wild.
Basically.
Yeah. So this would be slightly different in the sense that, he wouldn't be. This would be a specific person.
Man, shout out to that Netflix Daredevil show first of all, because
spoiler alert if you have.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, if you never.
It's a great show.
I mean, definitely watch it because it is just stellar, and that season 3 is just
amazing,
crazy. Really all 3 seasons are great, but season 3 is just absurd. Let's get to kind of this sequence, this action sequence that kind of plays out after the kind of interrogation of Clint and Kate. We see Mai kind of lose her cool with Kate, and we see kind of that frustration that she's still living with, this trying to live in both worlds. The fact that Kate's kind of smug and kind of trying to explain herself, and Kate, I don't think was really actually being disrespectful. Just her just being there and potentially being Ronan was enough for her to decide, nah, we gonna end this now. She's trying to choke her out right there. The guy has to come and say, yo, chill, what are you doing? And that kind of allows Clint to break out, and that kind of creates this fight scene inside the KB toy store or toy factory, wherever they were, that then spills out into the streets. I'm so happy that we got like it's so funny how since we've had the Green Arrow character on television and we've had the Hawkeye character in the movies, it was funny how both Marvel and Warner Media DC have been very hell bent on we're not doing trick arrows, that's dumb and stupid and nobody cares about it. When it's weird because all the fans were like, whoa, we want to see what kind of cool trick arrows you have. Shamari, what did you make of Marvel kind of saying, you know what, let's just have a scene play out where we're just gonna show all these crazy trick arrows and let that just be kind of like a bit in itself? Did you enjoy that aspect of it? I thought it was executed really well.
Yeah, I mean, it was done fantastic. I mean, it was fun to see. I want to see more arrows now in the movie.
Yeah, I want to see more now. Yeah, exactly.
I want more arrows. I think we got just a little bit in some of these Avengers movies, but I want to see more.
Yeah, and the Avengers movies, they're very few. Both Arrow and anything that Clint Barton has been in, they've been very tame. And again, I know that they've talked.
Yeah, they haven't been goofy.
The creators have talked about not wanting to be goofy with them,
but they're not. Yeah. They're almost like a utility.
Yeah, but these were more
punching, the boxing
glove. I still want to see a boxing glove arrow from somebody.
Yeah, we had that in Arrow.
We did get an arrow at one point. You're right.
Yeah, at one point, but that was later on when people were just begging for it.
That was fantastic. I mean, hands down, the favorite has to be the magic one, right? The magic one that summoned the giant.
The pin. Yeah, that was a pin. That was a pim arrow.
Oh, that was the pin.
Yeah. That was
shot the little one and turned it into a
giant. Yeah, and the arrowhead says pim on it. So
it does.
Yeah.
I thought that was like a rune or something. I couldn't even see it.
Yeah, the arrowhead said pin. The arrowhead says pim, and he shoots it into Kate's arrow, which again, just you talk about crazy accuracy, of course. Yes. And then of course the fact that it made it bigger and just crushed that.
That's why she was like, "This is a regular arrow. Like, what are we doing here?"
Right.
Yeah. So, and I didn't know what was going on either. No, I don't think anybody did. But that was certainly the best.
The showstopper. Yeah.
Usage of that, and probably the best moment in the episode. I thought the action prior to the car chase was excellent.
Just the fight scene alone.
The fight scene, the way Hawkeye and Clint Barton was fighting reminded me a lot of the Oliver Queen character and the stuff that we'd seen from Stephen Amell and Arrow. So got a little bit of a flashback there. But yeah, that was an excellent fight scene. I think this show is comparable to Falcon and Winter Soldier in that they're doing a very good job, and probably a better job movies ever have, of using a character like Clint, and again showing you the diversity and versatility of his fighting ability and him as a superhero. Because in Hawkeye in the Avengers movies, he's got functions, but he's obviously not the strongest one, so he's only gonna be used sporadically when they really need him to do something. Same with Falcon, and he's always been used, sporadically from an action standpoint. But we saw them now in those series use their technology and their equipment in creative ways, because they're fighting lesser enemies and things of that nature. You're not fighting, aliens and whatnot. So it makes them a little.
I wonder if, because I know Echo has the leg. I wonder if we're gonna get a bit of more of a like a Winter Soldier, maybe a Wakandan leg or something, or get some kind of upgraded tech. Does she have upgraded tech now? It doesn't seem like it, but it's possible.
Well, he tried to hit her in her leg, and with a 2x4, I think, and it just broke. When she tried to kick it, I think he tried to block a kick with a 2x4, and the 2x4 just cracked. I assumed that she's wearing long pants, so you don't know. I assumed it was the same leg. I couldn't remember which leg it was. I think it was the left leg. But
I'm like, she could get almost like a Winter Soldier kind of thing going on, where she's got super. Because with the tech now, with Iron Man and all this stuff, they
would have to make it make sense why the Wakandans even.
I just threw Wakanda.
It doesn't have to be Wakanda.
It doesn't have to be a vibranium leg, literally. But I'm just saying,
and this show.
A limb.
And to be fair, this show started with things being stolen from Avengers compound. So it's not to say that someone like Wilson Fisk couldn't get his hands on something that was stolen.
Right. Vulture and his gang and all this.
Right. Yeah. So we've seen that the Marvel universe has people with sticky hands that seem to get their hands on stuff that you would think only Avengers should be able to have, but that has not been the case. So, what did you guys make of the use of the hearing loss and deafness in this episode? It plays heavily through the conversation between Clint and Maya. Again, Maya. Very prideful about kind of who she is, and I thought it was interesting to kind of see her. She's face to face with someone who's an adversary, and just the fact that he uses a hearing aid was like an offense to her, and to the point where she says you'd actually be better off not using it. And it's something you see that even in these moments where something like that you think wouldn't matter to her, that they still matter a great deal. And then throughout a lot of the episode, until Clint gets his hearing aid fixed, this kind of. I thought kind of a story that was being told during that car chase scene, and then other scenes as well, was Kate and Clint. The whole show they haven't been on the same page, but in some ways they're on the best page when he actually didn't have his hearing aid in. They're able to successfully fight off those people in that car chase, even though he can't hear. They have the scene in the apartment where. He can't hear his son, and Kate's able to help him. It's a very touching scene as well. I thought that we don't see hearing loss and deafness really played out in a major way on just really any media. Definitely, obviously not sports. Superhero medium. Just what did you guys just make of how they implemented that aspect into this show on a much larger scale? We knew it would play a factor as soon as. Echo came into the picture, but it's even you having Clint also be a vehicle for that. I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah. I mentioned last week in our review that the hearing loss that they gave him, they didn't have to. No. Obviously, nobody would have blinked, but the hearing loss that they gave him, I think, was in part, to have those moments with him and Echo, have them make sense and have them be able to interact.
Right.
And have that interaction. I think the those dynamics were good. I thought the dynamics between the running gag with him and Kate Bishop, I thought that was cool. That was funny. I mean, it like the writers they did a good job of like you're not really realizing. A lot of the time, you keep forgetting that he doesn't have.
He can't hear,
so
right?
He's saying stuff and she's saying stuff, and some of it doesn't make any sense. And then eventually you realize, all right, just he doesn't know what she's saying. So yeah, I mean, I thought it worked. So yeah, I was on board.
Yeah, I definitely thought it worked as well. It was, you definitely connected with Echo's, upbringing, her struggles as well. So I thought that was really good. And I think the last time we got a deaf character in this kind of, yeah, I guess superhero space was kind of in Titans, I believe, with Jericho, right? Am I wrong about that? Or?
Right.
Yeah. So it was with Jericho, and I like that as well. I thought that was really well done. So yeah, I mean, I thought it was awesome.
Yeah.
And I think it not only kind of connects to, to like a deaf character in general. You kind of see a trend a little bit with the dog that's missing an eye, and Clint has a hearing aid implant. He can't hear, which there are a lot of people. That need hearing aids, of course, and as you get older, a lot of people need hearing aids, but a lot of people in general that just need hearing aids for whatever reason. So, yeah. I mean, I thought it was cool, and like I said, I like the connection, like Kendall brought up, the connection that it brings Clint to Echo. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I thought Kendall made a good point too about how using that hearing loss from Clint creates these humorous moments with Kate,
Yes, absolutely.
Where Kate's talking about walking the dog, and Clint, can't hear anything he's saying. He's like, you were right about being one of the greatest archers, and then Kate kind of just that's a major moment for her, and it means so much to her, and she wants to talk more about that, and then he's like, you should probably walk the dog, like so those are like just, and again, Haley and Renner just have really great chemistry, and they play those scenes very well. It just, again, using something like that as a way to kind of create different moments with these characters, or when they're in the diner. This time he has his hearing aid, but it's just not in. And Kate's talking about how great the morning was, and then he just puts it in, and she's like, "Wait, you didn't have it in?" He's like, "What?" It's just, these were just really really cool moments that I definitely enjoyed a great deal. What were you gonna say, Kendall?
No, I was just gonna say that it was also cool to see a Native American superhero in Echo,
for sure,
and not be portrayed in like a caricature kind of way.
Yeah.
A lot of times you see these characters, it's got to be someone who's Tonto or something like that.
Yeah.
But we didn't. That wasn't the case with this character, so I thought that was cool. I'm sure they'll flesh out her background more when her show comes out, which will be be cool to see as well.
And also a dope nod with her dad as he was dying with the blood print on her face, which is the influence for the comics for her to have the handprint on her face, as well. Like, we'll see if that ends up being part of her character, in her show and then as she's a superhero moving forward. But they really hit a lot of great notes. Sorry, what was that?
No, I was like, Alakwa Cox did an excellent job.
Oh yeah, just phenomenal. Character. Yeah,
because again, it's a tough thing because there's no vocal.
Yeah, so much of it is just your physical intensity, your facial expression, your physical intensity have to tell everything. And I felt like there was never a moment when she was on screen, including the young girl as well who played young Echo. There was never a moment where I didn't know exactly how she felt, even though she wasn't talking. And I know that there are subtitles, but again, you almost have to go a step further when you're, when you're not talking. You have to again show your facial expression, show your body language, and I always knew how she felt and where she was mentally and emotionally in every scene because of that performance. Yeah, I agree. I think it was great, and I see why they would feel comfortable, making her Echo move forward and feeling like there's a future with her, and eventually even launching a whole series with her. So the episode ends up ending with they decide to go back to the penthouse because they want to get more details perhaps on the tracksuits, more details on Jack, which Kate is still not letting up. And as they're in the penthouse, Kate's going through the security systems that her mom, of course, runs as a head of Bishop Security. She eventually gets locked out, and as she gets locked out, and Clint tries to do kind of like a recon of the apartment, he ends up having a sword kind of held to his neck by Jack himself, Jack Duquesne. Of course, Jack Duquesne in the comics is swordsman, so that's the track we expect him to go on. That was the Ronan sword, right? I'm mistaken? I thought that was. I'm pretty sure that was a Ronan sword. Yeah, it didn't retract, but it looked just like it. So yeah. So he not only is it the sword, but he's also holding the Ronan sword, which certainly is gonna then, I expect, accelerate the kind of conflict. You guys talk about maybe not as much happened in this episode. I mean, you see a guy with the Ronan sword that was in that auction situation, and he has that Clint's neck. I think we're gonna learn a lot more about who this Jack person is very quickly, given how this episode ended.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know where this is gonna go. I assume that her mom's gonna come into the picture as well,
right?
Since they're in their apartment. It's obviously clearly something's up because Clint Barton's with them or with her, so it's like, well, you're
right.
an Avenger, is with
right.
Kate Bishop, like, and yeah, I mean, this thing's gonna come to a head with that character. I expect we get more on the uncle next week as well.
That's true.
And more on Echo. And so yeah, I think that it's so tough, because again the pacing is interesting. I don't think we'll see the turn for the Jack Duquesne character until maybe episode 5.
Really? You think it'll come much later? I don't think so. I think he's starting this next episode. To me, he's caught red-handed. Like, he's holding the Ronin sword. He's ready to slice this guy's neck, and like, okay, Clint has broken into the apartment, but like, what the hell are you doing with the Ronin sword? Like, to me, that ends the conversation, as far as I'm concerned. If I'm Clint and Kate, like, you're going to jail, homie.
Well, they don't know that he has the Ronin sword.
Clint knows now. He's held it to his neck.
Well, Clint knows.
Right.
What is that?
Right, but so will Kate. Eventually, they're in the same apartment, unless he's going to kidnap.
What's the implication?
Yeah, I mean, didn't he grab that?
He grabbed it. He was in that auction where they were selling.
He was at the auction.
He was in that auction and
he
blew
picked
up.
It up and ran. Yeah.
Right, he picked up and ran with it. And remember, Kate thinks that he killed Armand. Armand died by sword. So
right, but we don't know if it was died by the Ronin sword. I guess.
No, but the idea that he has it and he's running around with it, and
I mean, yeah. I guess my thing, they already know he's up to something.
I know. Like Kendall sounds like he's doing a Matt Murdock thing here, defending Jack Duquesne.
Yeah, I know, right?
Call 1-800 Nelson and Murdoch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
I mean, I don't know if it means that he's actually gonna go to the jail. I'm saying I think for them, Clint seems very like, I don't know. He could just be a regular weird guy. Like he seems like he's more humoring Kate.
I see what you're saying. Like, now
with
he's
the
gonna
Jack
know,
stuff, right?
Oh, Jack Duquesne's evil.
Yeah, that guy has the Ronin sword and he wants it, and he
knows how to use it.
He knows how to use it. Like, that guy is dangerous, clearly. You know what I'm saying? Like, now, does his mom say, "Oh, you guys are just whatever"? And I have one question to ask about the mom in a second, but do they think, "Oh, that guy's whatever, and you guys are just being whatever"? Maybe, but I think for them, he now becomes like a true adversary, and it's gonna be harder for him to hide in plain sight.
I mean, I think just for the purpose of the story, I think we're going to get more on Jack next episode.
Mm-hmm.
Because just in terms of time, I don't think we're going to get anything on the uncle until probably
I think
an ultimate, maybe finale. then we get kind of a big reveal on a lot of scenes and all that.
Well, I don't know. I don't think we'll get a lot on the uncle in episode 4. I think we'll get something.
I mean, we could get something, but I don't think we're gonna see the uncle. I don't think we're gonna see the uncle next episode.
I think that
just because of how things have turned out with these other series, I don't think we're gonna see the uncle next episode.
I think that we may. I think the uncle will be involved next episode, but I don't think we'll see him. I agree with Sham. I think we may see another torso, we may see another suit, but I don't know if we'll see the full bald head Vincent D'Onofrio.
I mean, we might get at that point. I mean, that might be like a White Vision kind of thing, maybe for like the penultimate kind of thing. Yeah. Where like at the end of the episode, it's like, he reveals himself.
Right.
Or something along those lines. Though it may not be, it wouldn't be that crazy, but it's going to be, I think it'll be like a penultimate kind of thing.
Before we do scores real quick, I was reading on the last 2 episodes all week, and I read something that I thought was interesting to me and I wanted to keep a closer eye on, and it was something that did kind of raise my attention and raise my antenna a little bit more towards this theory. So I've heard people make the case that they think that Kate's mom is not all in the up and up either. That, Armand is threatening her partially because he knows she's in the ish. You know what I'm saying? Like she's in the business, so to speak. And I heard people make the point that perhaps maybe she is somehow linked to Hydra in some way. You see all the money they have. They were able to keep all this money despite their dad dying and then, her apartment being blown up, essentially. They seem to be very rich, very fine. There doesn't seem to be any issues. And I thought it was interesting when I heard Kate, when they walked in the penthouse and, she's going over things. Because these shows and movies, they always say little things. And like last episode when Clint, told, Kate that someone bought Tony Stark, sold Avengers Tower years ago. Again, we keep thinking who bought it. Will it be a red herring or is it something of note? They put these things in for a reason. So when Kate says that my great-great-great-grandfather built this building, I don't think that's nothing. I don't know if you guys noticed that or that was, but that didn't sound like nothing to me. Like, okay, not only did like your great-great-grandfather live in this apartment, or I guess live in this thing, he built a building. This building is, gotta be worth, tens of millions of dollars. Yeah. So who had that kind of money influence to make that kind of to be in that kind of spot at that point in time? If you're talking about great-great-grandfather, you're probably talking about 1800s. We know Hydra goes back, we know at least to World War II, but we know it goes back even further than that. That just made me pause to make me wonder, okay, is there some kind of link, maybe, inadvertently or explicitly to some organization and why she's so wealthy? It's just something I thought about when I heard that her father built the entire building. Her great-great-great-grandfather built the entire building.
Yeah, I mean, I know the theories are there with Kate's mom. I mean, it's very possible. The more we see, it may turn into a power broker kind of situation, so that's very possible.
When you say power broker situation, what exactly do you mean by that?
Just that the good person that supposedly
right, that you think is on your side,
helping out,
or not evil,
turn, or is actually the big bad guy at the very end of the show, and,
right?
That kind of thing. So, I mean, I think it's possible. I'm much more interested in the Kingpin angle, but in terms of a big bad at the end of the show, but it's possible. I think Hydra is interesting. I don't know if I'm so keen to dip back into the Hydra well so quickly. But
I think the people that didn't watch all 6 seasons of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. probably won't care. The people that have are gonna maybe all Hydra out by now.
Right.
After seeing all of it, but I don't know if they're gonna dip back into the Hydra well. Your theory isn't off in the sense that if you're going back that long ago, that would be the criminal element, from that long ago on the Marvel level. But I don't know. I tend to think that.
But you're thinking at Kate's age, she's a great, I believe. So a great grandfather is probably World War II era. So great is right before that. So you're talking about, again, it could be like almost the turn of the century. World War One, maybe even. And again, they certainly can write stories and have Hydra be a factor. We know that there's a certain clawed mutant that was born in the 19th century. And who's to say he didn't have a run-in with this fellow who built this building or the people who that person was working with? Again, just things I just try to think about and things I kind of throw out there. A lot of this show is putting.
I mean, another.
Thoughts,
this is.
I just thought that was noteworthy.
This is not going to be it. So take this with a grain of salt. But another sort of regal sort of entity like that would be the Hellfire Club.
I knew you were going to say that.
I just had to throw it out there. Obviously, we now have the X-Men and the Fox characters. That's not what they're going to do. But
I'd say it's unlikely, but that is interesting.
If they wanted to go down that road, that would be interesting.
Yeah, if you're talking about like nobility and you're talking about like that kind of money influence in New York City, then yeah, that would be definitely the kind of place that would make sense. Where
that is
a lineage would make sense as well.
They built the building. That's like industrial. It's like the Industrial Revolution.
Right.
And they because they made it sound like, or I don't. They didn't really make it sound like anything yet. I think maybe you just assumed the money comes from the dad, but maybe it didn't come from the dad. Did it come from the dad? I don't know. Did she say which line?
I gotta watch that first. I watched that first episode again, but I gotta watch maybe a third time. But I wanted to see is there any indication of where this money's coming from? My impression is that it did come from the dad, which is why but it's hard to tell. It's still hard to tell.
But then the mom is like a really high up person at this place. Though maybe she's successful too. I don't know.
And also seemed like she had a better sense. It seemed like she had the better sense of like how to deal with money and where they were.
Right.
He seemed to be kind of more like, oh, we're fine. So that makes you think, okay, maybe she actually was the one who had the money, and he's kind of not realizing the dire situation that they're in. So it was kind of hard to tell. Hopefully that'll be a little more clarified in these next 3 episodes, if there is anything to even dig into this. I think that there is, but we'll see how it ends up shaking out. But I think this is a great time to do scores, so I'll toss it to.
I just want to ask one more thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
If we think that there may be something there, do we think that Wilson Fisk, if he's in the series, do we think that he will know of the Bishop line? That's the thing.
I think he will.
Will he know? Another, another not criminal family, but another group of people that have a history.
So do you mean if
she may not know?
So do you mean if they're wealthy, or if they're they have dirty money?
If they're Hydra,
right? There's dirty money in there, or some kind of criminal.
Will Fisk be oh, you're Hydra kind of thing,
I think he will.
That would be. You would think he would know, right?
Yeah, I think he would. The one thing I will. Go ahead, Shannon.
They may not even interact with each other. There's another possibility as well.
But I think if it comes to that, I think he will. But go ahead, Shannon.
Yeah, I don't know. Kingpin always struck me as more of a street level. Hydra is like a international, terrorist government toppler kind of thing.
Right.
I don't know if Kingpin is.
Right.
Maybe he is. I don't know.
Kingpin but he values information. He values knowing what's happening in his city.
And do we think who do we think is? Do we still have any theories on who's behind the who wants the Avengers stuff? Who wants the Watch? What is the Watch?
Yeah, that's still a whole thing.
What?
Well, I assume it's Kingpin. The tracksuits work for Kingpin.
Right.
So why he wants that stuff, I don't know. But
that's
why he wants the Watch?
Why would Kingpin want?
Yeah, is the Watch some kind of Stark Tech? Is the Watch? Who knows what the Watch is? I don't know. That's still we haven't they didn't even talk about the Watch this episode, so we haven't gone back to that.
It's so weird
the
because
tracksuits have gotten so off track, and they've been so focused on Ronan because Maya has this personal beef, where the stuff that they were even worried about, we haven't even gone over that for a while.
Yeah, it's gonna be so weird if we see the Kingpin character just now again talking about him with the Avengers, which is never a thing. You know, why would Kingpin want stuff with the Avengers? It's like they were in a different universe before.
Yeah, yeah.
But now, you know, I don't know. Maybe he's ran into one of them before. Maybe he's ran into Spider-Man at this point. Probably not, but I don't know.
I mean, Clint makes it sound like he's run into this guy. You know.
Right.
And that's the one. That's the one thing I will mention is, does anyone? And this is the last thing I want to do because we do gotta get scores. We're running a little long, but is when I see the tracksuits and they're so bumbling. There's part of me that wonders, does it make sense for these people to really be working for Kingpin? Like, and I say that to say, like, the Marvel Netflix shows did a really excellent job of making Kingpin's henchman operation seem Teflon and so buttoned up and so tight.
Lethal.
Like, these guys are, like, very buffoon. There's a lot of buffoonery with these guys.
Right.
So,
there is that one aspect that kind of makes me kind of wonder, like,
now? Didn't they say, when your uncle was in charge? So is he not? Is he still affiliated with them?
It was when your dad was in charge.
Oh, well, that was when his dad is in charge. Right, his dad worked for Kingpin, I assume.
We assume works for Kingpin.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
And the dad used to work for Kingpin, and that she runs the tracksuits. And so I guess EJ's saying, why would Kingpin be affiliated?
Yeah,
with
Kingpin's he's running with
the famous scene was when they all ran out after Hawkeye and just left her by herself. I was like, why would they do that? But then you're like, then they write them in that, they're just idiots. Like,
so I don't. So personally,
like Stormtroopers,
I don't mind it because I would assume that the tracksuits are one of many street level.
That's what I was figuring out. Yeah, that's
maybe see them as like kind of like the Purple Dragons, and if you're anyone knows Ninja Turtles, or just a street gang basically, but that's being controlled by or like someone who's like he's like the puppet master of like the city. Right. He's like he's the boss of the city. Right. Or the underworld of the city, So, and the tracksuits are just a part of that. So that's what I would hope it would be, because I do agree they are very bummed.
Yeah, it's just something I thought about, especially when I thought about Clint's conversation with Kate in the park, where he was like, I took out the tracksuits and then another supplier, and then, the big guy got upset or whatever he said. Something along those lines. And I was just like, even that conversation made it seem like there was really only one other one other organization that this person at the top, who we assume is this uncle, was running. I'm like, really, the tracksuits were it? Like, again, they look terrible. So I don't know. It's just something I thought was something that was important to point out. Let's do scores here. I'll go to Kendall first. What are you giving Hawkeye Episode 3 Echoes score out of 10?
I'll go 8 out of 10. I thought this was a good episode. I feel like the series has stayed pretty consistent, very solid so far. Still room to grow. Want to see the plot move along, maybe a little faster, but still time. Still got 3 full episodes, so super excited to see where it goes.
What about you, Shan?
I give this episode an 8.5 out of 10. I thought this was a very solid episode. For me, the action really puts it over more than just being a good episode. I thought this was a great episode. The action is really well done. I know, EJ, I know you said it's reminiscent of Arrow. To me, I thought it was a little better. Or Kendall. To me, I thought it was a little better just because of how they're able to do the slow motion and the stunts and the things that just Arrow
Arrow on a Marvel budget.
Yeah, I would say Arrow. I would say Arrow influenced, but a notch above. Yeah,
I would agree with that.
Diggle had some nice fight scenes.
He did. Yeah, he did. He was the Green Arrow. But yeah, this was. I thought this was a great episode. So I'm giving this 8.5, and I still think Kate Bishop is really shining very bright in this show. Haley Steinfeld's doing a fantastic job, and Jeremy Renner is too.
Yeah,
he showed a lot of heart in this episode, so I thought it was very good.
Yeah, you mentioned Haley, and I watched this episode and I'm just like, yeah, you totally understand why Kevin Feige was just like, this is the max this is the max player that I'm trying to sign. That means I gotta delay this project to get it done. I'm getting it done. Like you get the impression that he might not even move forward with this if it wasn't Haley, and you understand why. She's just, her comedic timing is so on point. Just everything about her acting in this show has just been so on point for what they need to bring to this Kate Bishop character. She remains to be stellar and a star of this show. I'm gonna give this an 8.5 as well. I thought that, to me, the action sequences took what this episode may have been normally like an 8 per se, and it took it to 8.5. But it's not just the action that was strong here. I mean, again, the emotional moments with young Maya Lopez, the intensity of the older Maya Lopez, the emotional scenes kind of with Clint talking to his son, and Kate trying to, there's just a lot of great moments here. There's not really much to dislike. Again, if there's anything that's holding back, maybe you say, again, the episode's pretty contained. But I almost feel like I can't even use that critique anymore that you guys were saying earlier, because I think the show is contained. Like, this is not going to be a show where just like what's going to happen is going to change the Marvel landscape. That's just not what's going to happen. This is a very contained story. It's Christmas themed, and we kind of just got to live with that and take it for what it is. But what they're giving us is pretty fun. What they're giving us is really engaging, and it's action packed, and it's been a blast. So I really enjoyed this episode. I think this was a major step up. Very, very curious to see if they're able to rev up the Jack Duquesne part of the story, because he was really non-existent, and her mom was non-existent for this whole episode. So that part of the story needs to get revved up. We spent most of this episode with the tracksuits and with Maya Lopez. I think probably we flipped that and probably spend more time today or next week with that situation. But that's going to do it for this week's Hawkeye recap review discussion. Of course, if you like this video, make sure you give us a like and leave a comment on what you thought about the episode. Of course, subscribe to the channel, and make sure you check out our podcast as well on the New Generation Podcast Network. That's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and TuneIn. Thank you guys again for checking us out. We'll be back next week. For Shamari, for Kendall, I'm EJ. Take it easy, guys. Peace.